right, so what we're here to do is to have a hearing about the discontinuance of Town Highway 61. I think everybody was out, everybody just walked it and enjoyed the nice plants that are out there. And so the purpose of this for the next half hour or until we get done is for everybody here to be able to talk to us about the discontinuance or continuance on the road, whatever you happen to have that you want to input to us. I don't think this is generally going to be a huge back and forth discussion. We'll have that during the discussion in the select board meeting when we decide to have a motion and vote. So this is your opportunity to talk to us about concerns you may have. And it's sort of like town meeting, let's just do it. Everybody can kind of speak once and then we'll go back to other people. And it also might help just say your name for the recording, when you're speaking, and we'll basically take in all the information that you all have in whatever manner you want to do that. So our cameraman's ready. So you ready? You look like you're itching.
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. We're ready.
Let me sit over here so I can see people.
Sure.
So my name is Guru Dharam Khalsa, and I live at 25 Lion Street with my wife, Catherine O'Kelly. So I have a statement I'd like to read. The railroad bed that underlies Town Highway 61 has been a common passageway since 1939 when the railroad pulled up stakes. Yet it never received a name, or a sign, or a page in the town land records, unlike the West Dummerston Schoolhouse Road, which was laid out and recorded in 1932. Town Highway 61 does not appear in any land surveys or property deeds. The only legal record is the town highway map, which shows multiple course changes since 1941 when it first appeared. Again in 1958, in the 1980 revisions, and revised again in 1986. No one can explain why the current highway map terminates Town Highway 61 prior to reaching West Street on the north end. Given the existing use for 85 years, the map appears to be an anomaly. There is no history of the town maintaining the road as a Class 3 highway or any maintenance at all. The road is impassable during heavy rains, mud season, or winter snow. Vermont Statute 717B includes a presumption of discontinuance after 30 years of non-maintenance, which I want to read into the record in case you haven't looked at Vermont law. A town highway that has not been kept passable for use by the general public for motorized travel at the expense of the municipality for a period of 30 or more consecutive years, following a final determination to discontinue the highway, shall be presumed to have been effectively discontinued. This presumption of discontinuance may be rebutted by evidence that manifests a clear intent by the municipality and the public to consider or use the way as a highway. The presumption of discontinuance shall not be rebutted by evidence that shows isolated acts of maintenance unless other evidence exists that shows a clear intent by the municipality to consider or use the highway as if it were a public right-of-way. Unquote. The Select Board cannot willfully ignore this legal presumption. Since the West Dummerston School closed in 1934, 30 years ago, 1994, 30 years ago, there have been no isolated acts of maintenance by the town. The strip of land bisects our property. The so-called highway was deeded by the Dummerston School District to Dora Gray in 1954 when our house was built. We now own the land. The road is not traveled behind our house. When we bought the property in 2004, there was a laundry pole in the center of the road, which still stands there today as a reminder that a road not traveled is not an actual road. Simply put, there is no public good, necessity, or practical convenience served by the town highway. The board should recognize this fact of the land and allow Town Highway 61 along the railroad bed to disappear from Google Maps, just as Town Highway 62, 63, 64, and 66 have disappeared from the town highway map. So in conclusion, the select board should not project an uncertain future use on the road, just as it cannot legislate the past use. In the present time, this moment, the request of the abutting property owners and other Dummerston residents who signed the petition to discontinue the road should be honored. It is honorable because it is our sense of place. It is our home.
Anyone else, or anyone have questions?
I can say,
You have to say your name.
Harold Newell. I've been here for 63 years, and what he read was not true, all. I have seen the town of Dummerston plow this road and use that road all the way down around and up the hill, out, when the school was in session, and not after the school was closed, but before, many times. Also, that road was formed on the railroad bed in 1935, one full year after the school had one session. For the reason is, the first year, winter, the school bus couldn't make the hill. And so they had trouble trying to get the kids to school and back home. So the town turned around and bought this land, and they made that road Town Highway 61 in 1934.
Except the school district of Dummerston deeded the land to Dora Gray, who was the prior owner.
I didn't say nothing about that.
Oh, okay, I thought you said they bought the road. They didn't buy the road.
They bought the land.
They didn't buy the land, they sold it to Dora Gray. I have a deed. Sorry. 1954.
Since there's a lot of history here, I'm just curious, just a little side question. So,
Sure.
Riverside Road, which was the other side of the railroad bed that was discontinued. Terry lives up there with her husband, right?
No, it wasn't the other side of the road. That was never the railroad bed.
Oh, so that discontinued with the train stations over there.
Right.
No,
We got here now. The train went behind Denny's house.
See, this is when I won't be here 6 years, which was Denny.
Denny here.
Okay.
I'm Paul Chapman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Alright. The road goes out. It went behind between Gene Brown's and Denny Tier's house. Went out to the train station, which was moved to where it is now.
I see.
It was closer to Denny's backyard and my corner.
So your property, there's a house further north. Are all the houses yours?
No, but they were never. Those houses were never on. The road was never the railroad bed.
Okay, so what's that long driveway that was discontinued?
Riverside Drive.
So that was discontinued. I guess
No, it was actually same like this. They only owned 51 feet or 52 feet.
Right.
They never purchased or the rest of it.
But when it was discontinued, whoever lives to the north, you all had to come to some agreement on how they could get to their house.
There was a right of way in our deeds.
So the deed, you guys had a right of way between each other.
Right.
That's what I want to know.
Correct.
Is how we go about that. Okay.
Right.
That answers the question. We can't do the railroad station. Expect me to know that.
Yeah, the railroad station was about 100 yards south, 150 feet south of where it is now.
Other inputs? Yes.
I would just like to appreciate your efforts and your attention and your due diligence. I had no idea when the question was posed, well, this is still a road, that it would involve so much history and such a process. But, and I want to appreciate your thoroughness and agree with your statement. I think fundamentally, it has in effect been discontinued in practice and by neglect from the town. And so fundamentally my request is make that official. It hasn't been maintained, it hasn't been used. I think the town of Dummerston gets paid by the state because it's a class 3 highway, and yet in my experience in the village, which is over 20 years, we're getting money for something that you weren't doing, so just let it go. And trust that the citizens of this civil community can work out whatever we need to work out if there are any issues. Carrie told, should have said that.
Gotta start over again. Has to be at the beginning or it doesn't count. Anyone else?
I was just gonna say, I think everything else we submitted in writing, so
Right, yeah, we've done a lot. Bob, you anything to add?
Just, I guess a question, and then from the standpoint of folks walking, I know the far end of it is private, but is there routine evidence of local people like walking, making a loop going out through what's private?
I'd have to say no.
I mean, your
Right there.
your laundry thing there is, okay. And then the test that the board applies here is whether the public good, public necessity, and public convenience warrant the action that the board is going to take. So that's what the board needs to deliberate on, is whether it is in the public good, public convenience, and necessity to discontinue. So weighing, does it get used, does it not get used, what are the costs of maintaining it versus not maintaining it. All of those things are factors that the board can consider. And so if any of you, the purpose of the hearing is to at least present comments or facts to the board that may help the board determine that test of public good, public necessity.
Anything else?
I'm Randy Hicken.
Nice.
I used to walk that road a little bit because there was a store over there and they let you go from school. That store has been there for quite a while, so there's been no school kids traffic. But the question I have is about how much of what I was reading before is at the corner of the building here is where you were going to give up from there out. What would be the advantage of not giving the entire road, including the driveway, up, and then it won't be a town highway, but it would be just a driveway to
The community center?
the community center, not having a town road status?
Well,
Have you considered that?
I haven't considered that. Who's going to maintain it?
Say again?
Well,
Who's going to maintain the driveway and the parking lot? Who's going to plow it? 'Cause right now, the town plows it.
The town
And we
plow,
maintain it
and then periodically pay it.
and figure out the rate.
the only thing I would add there is if it's maintained as a class 3 highway from West Street to the corner of the building, then when you go to repave that section, you'll get matching monies from the state. So
That's what I mean.
that does make a difference there. And one other question, when we walked, people were using the 379 feet having been measured from the black line across the road on the north end. Where does that 379 feet end here? Corner of the building or the
My
black
property
line?
Paul, you were here when you walked it off, right? So he knows where they started.
We basically started at the end of the building.
At the end, okay. All right.
Rick Davis, I measured that out and marked that line. 379 feet goes to the property line at the corner of the road here, not the building.
Okay.
Well, that's what I meant.
Good.
Right down here on
Yeah.
the,
So, because the plows, I believe, when they plow, they come and they plow the back here too. So, it would include just from your property line forward. So maybe it's 379, 307. We can figure that out. But you would keep the side of the building correct.
I only asked that with regard to when you do your town highway map and your log of the number of miles, you'll measure from West Street to the back there.
Yeah, the whole run is 0.5 1.4 miles from West Street all the way to the Black Line. So it's not a ton. I mean, highway funds that come in, I think, are less than $100 a year. It's not much. Any other questions? All kinds of good Vermont state code we can talk about. It's exciting.
Is there anyone here who has concerns about discontinuing the road?
I have a question. If it is discontinued, who gets Scion behind that?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Who gets Scion?
So I will read you what the statute says on that. Let's see here. Just my internet went away. But essentially, when you discontinue a road, the property that was in the road reverts to the owner if you can determine the ownership or the boundary from deeds prior to when the road was there. So sometimes if your deed says, out to a stone wall along the road and then along the road, you wouldn't get half the road because your property ended at the stone wall along the road. But if it's undetermined, then it goes to the middle of the road. So each property owner on each side would own half the road, and through which the others would have a right of way. But that's what I was trying to ask questions about when we were on the site visit, because your property is on both sides. So the property line, really goes to the middle there and is essentially swallowed up. Other people that look like either had frontage on West Street or from the right-of-way on the north side. So everyone has access to their property, best that I can tell. But if I'm wrong on that, certainly let the board know.
Well, the only thing I would add is that I don't have access to the back lot from this entrance to Town Highway 61. I have to come in from the north end to access my back lot.
Jean Hall. When this first came about back in February, I was still working at the town office, and so I looked up a few of the deeds. What I found out was that the railroad bed that's beside Elizabeth Davis belongs to her. The railroad bed that's beside the Wicker property is a right-of-way from the Davis property to the Wickers. Anything beyond that does not have anything saying it belongs to anyone except for when it comes right together. And I also looked up the deed for Lisa Blake's, and it did not say anything about having her have a right of way to the railroad bed. That's right in town
Right,
office.
and that's how I understand it too.
Yes,
Although
I just wanted
there is
to
a
make that
right, you
clear.
have a right of way.
I have a right of way.
He does.
By Liz
Yeah.
Davis. Yeah.
Like,
So yeah, that's exactly how I understand it. And my concern looking through this is that nobody on the road is isolated from access to their property or a portion of their property. Because in the same, we had a discussion about the statute that you read, and we asked Vermont legal cities and towns, and they came back with a pretty lame answer. It didn't help at all about that 30-year.
Well, that 30 year that you talk about, the 30 year is if there's a presumption that a road is discontinued if it's not maintained for 30 years. That statute actually says that when a town has discontinued a road, if there's no evidence of maintaining it for 30 years thereafter, it is presumed that that discontinuance is proper. Discontinuances, just like laying out a road, have to be done by action of a town or town select board. So the way people have challenged discontinuances in the past has been if they could challenge some defect in the procedure that the board took, then they would say, well, it's not properly discontinued, therefore it's a class 3 road, and by the way, fix it up all the way to the property I just bought. Okay, that was the argument. So then they added that section 717B, which says that if it's discontinued and 30 years goes by, it's presumed that the board did it right. We're not gonna go back and revisit. It's a slight difference to what you said compared, because I think you were saying if it's not been maintained for 30 years, it is discontinued by operation of law. It doesn't quite say it.
So what you're saying is even if the board decides to discontinue it, it's not effective for 30 years?
No, I'm saying that, and that's the reason why, the way it's done today, with sending notices of this site visit and hearing by certified mail, and we have the return receipts, posting, you have to follow the statutory procedure. So that's what we've done. So if the board decides to discontinue the road, the board will issue written findings within the time period, and then that gets recorded. It gets taken off your highway map, etc. There's no need for a real survey of it. When you lay out a road, you have to have it surveyed, but when you discontinue it, you just need to note where it's being discontinued. That's why I asked the distance, 379 feet, and where that starts and stops. But no, if the board decides to discontinue it, it will be final today, in my legal opinion, because the board has done it correctly.
Reading my article on using Dummerston roads coming up. It's hot off the press. Not about this, but about Class 4 roads. It's exciting. Anything else that anyone wants to bring up? Well, all right, so we'll adjourn this meeting, this hearing. Take a break. We'll start. You don't have to stay if you don't want to. We'll start the select board meeting at 6. And I think the third item on the agenda is highways, where we'll have any further discussion about this and then vote on whether to discontinue the road. So that shouldn't be too far into the meeting. Thank you for coming. Sorry about the temperature. So it's 6 o'clock, July 10th. This is select board meeting. Two things to add to the, Maria, keep straight on this. The posted agenda has incorrect warrant numbers.
Yes.
The warrant number should be 1 and 1P, vice 27 and 27P. And there's one to add, which is 26A. So when we get to our warrants, we'll have those three things. I think that's the only change. All right, so review and approve minutes of the previous meetings of June 26th and July 8th special meeting. The July 8th special meeting, just so everybody knows, was the select board setting the municipal tax rate for the town. So they're stuck in your tax bills as I look today. So look for those in your mail. Everybody wants them. They're coming. And so that's what the 8th meeting was.
All paid, huh?
I'll pay for you.
Yep, I know they are.
Do you have any motion?
I move that we approve the June 26th minutes.
All right, I'll second that motion. Any discussion on them from anyone here? All right, all those in favor of approving the June 26th meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
And no, there's none.
Make a motion that we accept the July 8th special meeting.
All right, any discussion?
I'll second it.
Second it. Any discussion or cover what it was and what you're gonna pay? All those in favor that were there, say aye.
Aye.
Abstention.
Abstention.
And 2 abstentions?
Abstention, yeah.
That's right. Thanks. All right, warrants. Warrant 1P is payroll. Standard monthly payroll, it's about $11,300. There's nothing unusual in there. And warrant 27 is the standard expense, monthly expenses for various things. That's $26,400.
That's number 1.
That's number 1, sorry, number 1, not 27, correctly. $26,443. And 26A was the last warrant we signed at the end of, between the last select board meeting and the start of the fiscal year. So we just have to, I had to go in and sign that, pay that at the end of the year. So I didn't see that. How much was that for, Maria? Do you have to in there?
This one right there.
Okay, it's $4,744.34.
All right. So we have all three too.
I'll make a motion that we approve the payment warrants 1, 1P, and ratify 26A.
I'll second that.
Who did that?
Alex. Is there any questions on any items in there after reviewing them? I know there's some roof work done on the garage, which was a little unusual. Did that come out of ARPA?
Yes, it did. I was
Okay.
just gonna say there was ARPA
Okay.
expenditures in there.
All right. All right, all those in favor of approving warrants 1, 1P, and ratifying 26A, say aye. Aye. Any noes? ARPA funding. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep that on until time runs out.
Yeah.
Visitors and public comment. Anyone have anything that's not on the agenda that they want to bring up? That they're here for anything of note? No? All right. Road foreman's report. So the right of way on the town road, or town highway 61, we're going to decide on whether to discontinue or not. So if you want to get a motion, we can have any further discussion.
I'll make a motion that we approve discontinuing Town Highway 61.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? Anyone want to ask any more questions?
Just one legal comment is, if the board wanted to go into deliberative session, it has the legal right to do that. I don't get the sense that you need to or want to, but just so that you know your legal rights, I point that out.
All right, no discussion.
So I'm curious if anyone, property owners that are affected have looked into impact on taxes, property taxes. I assume taxes would go up a little bit, assessments would go up.
My tax map says I pay tax to half that road anyway. If you look at the tax map, it draws a line right down the middle of that road for the tax property.
The private part or the highway part?
Both.
Both?
Yeah, there's I actually have it up on my computer. Right down the road, we're all paying taxes to the middle of that road currently, according to the tax map.
Well, so we just had this sidebar discussion, so it seemed like these numbers were variable. As I learned about the roads, so the roads themselves are private property. There's just a right-of-way easement for the town for any roads, class 2, 3, and 4. And that allows the town to maintain, fix, repair all the culverts, any trees that might present a problem or whatever. And I think all we're really doing, and this is more ethereal, right, is we're just lifting the right-of-way easement for a class 3 road here. And you're already paying taxes on the property under it. So the property under the road is in fact private property with an easement for the highway. Is that correct?
That is correct, I believe, in this situation. Towns can actually own the fee title underneath a road if it's deeded to the town. But most of your old roads are essentially a public right-of-way over land that is owned by the individual landowner.
Which is why if we need to do maintenance on a rotting tree that might fall on the road, Lee would come to your house and say, hey, we need to take this down for the right-of-way clearance, and the town essentially is going to pay to remove those trees. But they would come contact you first, or limbs or anything like that.
To your question on values, having frontage on a town highway typically will increase somebody's value. Here, I don't necessarily think it does, because many of these landowners have frontage on West Street as well. So there's going to be no reduction in value, I think, from the assessor's standpoint, but I'm not the assessor. So.
We should ask a lister.
I have a question about something you said earlier.
Yeah, but you have knowledge.
They all have a classification.
Yeah.
Every area in the whole town, so it really, and it does depend on whether you're by a main road.
Okay.
It does depend if you're way out in the hills on a dirt road. It's just what your land is assessed at.
And from a zoning perspective, having frontage on a town road is or a legal right-of-way is a prerequisite to developing that property. But I think that's really irrelevant here, because everybody either has a deeded right-of-way from the north or has access off of West Street.
So my question was what you were speaking about earlier. Do we know for sure that all of the land meets, that there are no gaps where, you know how you were saying if it goes up to just this point that it would be no man's land, or what would it be?
Yeah, I don't think we do know that. And The only way really to figure that out would be to have a survey done, which if you're discontinuing a road, seems like a useless expense.
I think we have a survey, right? Didn't you say we have one?
We both.
I have my property
Your
survey
property,
with
okay.
granite pins and metal
Okay.
pins all
Yeah.
confirmed. But
So we could look at parts of it. I think it probably, the one property, the Grange property, I don't know, do we know the exact boundary of the back of the Grange? I think
The
that-
survey that I had done has like a parallelogram of question mark in that area.
Okay.
Is that what yours says too?
yeah, it's either attached to the Grange or to the post office.
Yeah, there
property.
seemed to be some question about ownership of small sections, sort of in where all those properties come together.
What we don't want the town to do is to be making a legal determination on property boundaries when that's not what the town's expertise is in. So it's probably easier for the town to say it's discontinued and, it goes to the center of what the road was. If landowners then want to dispute that from one landowner on one side to the other, they can either dispute it or seek a boundary line agreement as between the parties. And I would say that as well with regard to the issue of whether or not easements are required to get to all of the properties. So if this were just a road going up in the middle of a parcel and you discontinued it, but that was the only access to all of the properties, and then by law, all of the properties have an easement in common with one another to get to their land. Here, everyone has legal access to his or her individual property, either by frontage on West Street or legal rights of way coming in from the north. So whether or not, as a board, you feel you need to reserve easements for everybody is up to you. From my thinking, and this is disputable, I guess. I think reserving easements to everybody probably causes more problems than it solves. And I say that because of the first owner here, Gorham. Sorry, I need to pronounce that better. But his property would be the most affected with people going through what is essentially a backyard.
Some of that property was built right over where the railroad was. That house was added on to it.
Right. So the train there used to be more space between where the train was and the house, more likely. So yeah, the house has gotten a little bigger.
Huh?
The house has gotten bigger.
Yeah, but towards the train track.
Right.
So, this is John Gregory. How do you define access to your property? And let me just say one thing. You may want specific access for a specific reason, right? Like whether it's I want to build something, I want to park something, I want to drive something very large on it. Maybe there's something about that property that I've done it to myself that doesn't allow me to have the kind of access that I think I need.
Right.
So how is that defined?
So your legal access would be based off of, in your deed, the legal right-of-way coming in from the north to get to your property. So that's in your deed. I think it says also including the right-of-way across Davis to get there. So that's your legal right-of-way for purposes of if you were putting an addition on and you needed to show a legal right-of-way for purposes of a zoning application, anything like that. It is possible to have access on one side of a property and another easement coming into another side of your property for particular reasons. It may be that this is how you access your house, but the sugar house is accessed through a some other easement, and it's a much tighter situation here. You're the blue house? No,
I actually live across.
Oh, you're across the street.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of your house up there.
Yeah.
there'd really be no other reason to come in this way to your house.
But if you didn't have that right of way to the north, you're landlocked.
Oh yeah, if you did not have the right of way to the north,
He's landlocked.
then by law, the board would need to reserve an easement to get to the property. That's my point. Yes. You do not want to and legally can't create a landlocked parcel.
And I think the Grange property is an example.
Didn't have any way out the backside of it.
Right, so if, let's just say, for the purposes of discussion, that the property of the Grange is exactly as wide as that building. Right, so there's nothing on either side of it to get to the back part of that property.
No.
Since the back part of the property is on a current road, if that road is discontinued, they would get necessary access to that portion of the property through what used to be the town road. So for that area, the question is, and this is something that you all work out, is can they get to the parking at the back of the Grange without that road being used or coming from the market? And so,
What if the same owner owns the adjacent property and could grant themselves access?
is the same owner that does own the adjacent property?
They do own the same property.
Oh, so the person who owns the Grange owns the property.
Post
Post office is on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they both are.
Oh, owns the post office. Right?
Yes.
Oh,
And
thank you for pointing that out.
Yes.
They certainly can grant themselves, I mean, they don't need an easement over property they own.
And that's, as I've gone through this over the last few weeks, one of the concerns was access to zone, we talked about this yesterday, is access to parking that has been given the permit from the zoning for the town. And so to deny access to the permit that she has for parking is a little weird, and that was one of my main concerns. But if she can access the parking from the side of the building, she does in fact have access to get to the back. That's why my example was, if there's nothing on either side, and we said, oh, you can have a parking permit for the back of your building, I would assume the town had said, well, you're going to come from the north or from the south. Otherwise, why would we give a permit? Because it would be inaccessible. But if she can get there from the side in real life now, then that part of the property is accessible from West Street.
Yes.
So we're talking a lot of ifs here. But if she did not own the post office property, and if you say the sides of the building were the actual lot lines, then the board would really need to reserve an easement to the back there. And if the road being discontinued went to the middle, she might have a little extra space there at the back of the garden. But that doesn't appear to be the facts as we know it based on current ownership.
And if it were never a road, we wouldn't have to do anything, because that's just her backyard. And she doesn't have to have a
It
right
used to
access
be
to
in
it.
the good old days, everybody
She was-
drove around.
Yeah.
She was mentioning where that car was between the post office, that's how people get back there.
Yep.
But I think part of the challenge is there's a septic system.
Oh, yeah, she can't drive around it
Right,
there with
so-
a septic and a gas tank there.
Right.
Yeah. And
leach
leach
field.
field. So, but that's, it appears, we talked to her, and we had a discussion yesterday out there in the ticks, and what's going on here is that everybody over here is fine working it out on their own in the future. If there's whatever happens, whatever property may get sold, may not get sold. I know a lot of the property is deeded to children, and my property's deeded to my children too, but that doesn't mean they don't want to live here in 25 years. So you don't know what's going to happen in the future, so there's a little bit of a gamble there on your part, but as long as you guys are willing to accept that gamble, it makes sense.
I think our only concern is if the town grants her 2 parking spaces behind, allows her to separate the parking in a way that would cause her to, need to ask us for access. That feels like the town is then stepping in again to force the issue.
I mean, she already has the parking. She already has 4 spaces assigned and allocated. And when I looked at it, and I missed it, it didn't say how she was going to get to them. But I'm assuming somebody thought about how it was like me with my property. I have an extra house. With my 2 places, in order to have an extra unit, were out in the woods where you couldn't get to them. I'm sure Roger would say, well, that doesn't count. They have to be accessible parking spaces. So I know she had a hearing with the DRB last month. But, so that's a little more of a DRB select board, or DRB zoning administrator than select board. We kind of let them do their own thing. So.
I haven't talked to Roger about that DRB matter, and some of that would depend on the post office property too, being the abutting property, so.
The thing is, the post office property itself, so the road in front, when you drive out, the road in front of the post office is a town road, that loop.
It is.
So it's only the building
So it's only the building.
the property's on, right?
So that road in front is
I think that might
not,
be Town Highway 60 or 62.
I don't remember.
It's very close to 61. So the loop is, and so in theory, for parking, like you can't
65.
park in the loop. Yeah. Oh yeah, 65. Yeah, it's right there.
Down this way, yeah.
Yep. So, all right. Any further discussion? I'm going to keep it here. My curiosities. Where it's like I'm not putting all that in minutes. All right. So that's another discussion. So all in favor of discontinuing Town Highway 61, say yes. Or aye.
Aye.
And anybody against it? All right. So it's unanimous. And I think we've got now stuff to follow up on with the state for our end of it.
yeah, so what I will do, based on your decision, I'll draft the proposed findings for the board to sign. I should be able to get you that in the before your next meeting.
Okay.
And then I'll give you, that needs to be signed, sent out to the abutting landowners, and then recorded in the town clerk's office.
All right.
I'll spell that out.
Sounds good.
That's,
We will await it. Thanks for your help.
Thanks,
you're
Bob.
very welcome, and enjoy the rest of your meeting.
We're not going to be far behind you.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate it. Correspondence for information. There's a list of things. Any questions that anybody wants to bring up on any of those? I'm trying to think if there's any.
What's the Act 250 application? Is that the rowing club?
I think that's the rowing club one, but they're still waiting on. That's the only one I think was out of town because the brewery one is well. That's I think inside. And the zoning administrator appeal case, that's the dismissal of the appeal to
I can feel the breeze.
the DRB finding of the property. All right, so correspondence for discussion or action. I think I've told Prospect Hill Chair, since we are all members. Isn't that nice? You had an extra job. That we'll have a meeting on July 24th before our select board meeting. I don't think it'll be very long at all. It'll be probably 15 or 20 minute thing. So I'll coordinate with him and he'll coordinate with Lori. I think we're just going to review some minutes, talk about plans for the future. New business. All right. Port-A-Potty at the rec area on Route 30. So this is the northern area, not
Where the Rock River comes in.
yeah, where the big swimming hole is where it goes. So,
Anything you can do to stop those idiots is okay. You have to drive through it daily, and when it's summer and muggy, you
So
can
someone who
actually
lives up there-
smell
Someone who lives up there had brought it up to
Thanks.
Senator Harrison, who brought it up to us, and
Right.
asked if we were interested in putting a porta potty up there.
they're gonna trash it.
I'm gonna assign. I want to assign this to somebody. My inclination is no. I don't want the responsibility for it. I don't want an unattended, unsecured porta potty up there. Who knows what's going to happen to it? Plus, I don't want to go down a road where there's some feeling where we have to put porta potties at every wildlife hiking
Or
area.
that we're encouraging recreation.
Or that
use
we're
there.
encouraging. And when you look
No,
at
would it be a
I don't know what the hell I'm going out.
no, just
I can see
porta
20
potty
cars
paying
out
monthly
there
fees
and
on.
there's
Why
not a
would
lot
we
of
be
area.
paying?
Because
You can
well,
actually smell it when you drive
Yeah.
over.
So the problem with it is there's a little map there. I have a couple of them. She sent the map. So it's in the town of Dummerston officially. But if you look at the
But we
state,
don't actually own the the town doesn't
Right.
own the property, so.
right? So if you look at the blue lines there, that's the
State of
state owns all that. And in fact, I know the state owns it because they said we have to apply for a state permit to put it on state land. So I'm like, if you really want to do it as a state agency,
You do.
have at it. But I don't initially want to get involved.
The issue, to be able, I tend to agree with that. I'd be reluctant to, get involved. But you know, the recreational use in Dummerston by the covered bridge and further downstream, the pollution, the water quality is being affected if there is waste going into the river upstream. You know, we're downstream of
And I
that.
think the state was going to do a water quality study as part of this discussion. We're not doing it.
But Dio's hole is just as bad sometimes. You drive by there and
Yeah.
Really?
So
used to be 50 years ago.
Right.
Local people
I
used to
used
go
to
down. I used to swim in it.
I refuse to go in that water.
And I mean, now you go down and it might be 2 Vermont cars out of every 50.
Sure.
All out of staters.
Yeah, I drove by the other day up at the Rock River coming, you know, down 30, and there must have been 200 cars there, both
At
sides
least,
of the road.
all the way up to the lanes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So I think for us, it just, does somebody who's not me want to coordinate with Senator Harrison about this to dig a little bit further? I mean, again, my position would be it's not. I mean, I understand it's in the Dummerston town line, but that's all state-owned property along Route 30. In fact, the map, when you look at it, and the fact that I have to ask for a state permit indicates that it's state property. So
That's just a waste of your time.
I don't want to not respond to her. But I'm more than willing to tell her that.
Well, what's the consensus of the board to not get involved? Then that's all you have to tell her.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to go any further.
Right.
I mean, it just opens up a huge can of worms for the town.
I
And
don't
who's
think
going
we
to
have,
maintain
we
it?
have
Who's
the,
going to pay for
It
it?
ends up going into a big loop.
I don't
Yeah.
see that we've got the right to
Exactly.
say yes or no if it's state property. That's up to the state. She needs to apply
Right.
to
I
the
think
state.
that's what it is. So if the consensus is that we don't want to go any further with this, then that's what we'll do.
The state could still decide to put in.
Right, but
water
then we're out of it. It's the state's problem.
It's the state's property.
So
It's
for
not-
for the reasons of we believe it's state property because you're asking us for a permit, which you say you'll give us for free. If the permit and the line, the borders indicate that this is a state issue, not a town issue, and we don't want to participate.
Yeah.
All right.
And if there's that much, like 200 cars or however many cars, that says that this is some sort of, you know, recreation area that the state should be doing something to. The idea is good, but not having Dummerston in charge of it or maintaining it. But if there's always that many people in summer,
And the river is
it
on
is
the
something that
state.
would be good, but not to be done by Dummerston.
I don't think it's ever been sanctioned as a recreation.
Yeah,
But don't the state have signs right on Route 30 saying recreational area and you get the blinking
Flashing
lights?
lights, yes.
For
they do.
safety, for
For the highway.
That's what it is.
Because there's a little bit of a lot there, and that's a V-Trans lot, I believe.
Mhm.
So it's a state highway lot. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not ours. So. All right. Well, I'll write to her and gently tell her what we feel. Salmon Brook Erosion. We got no bids
really.
for the design.
Oh my.
Okay.
So
I'm
I'm,
so,
go ahead.
there's a word
Yeah.
that almost hang up.
So what I'm going
It's
to do is
worse.
contact the state.
Another storm.
Yeah, I'm gonna contact the
Another
state and see what he has to say. I don't know what Maria, you may know history, because basically when I asked them, I'm like, how do we do the RFP? It was the same way you would do for highway funds. So has there ever been a time where we didn't get a bid on something?
No.
Now, did you go local, like Grover's or something
Did,
like that?
did it get sent specifically to contractors, or did it
Just
just
published, and then I got, I think 3 contractors who asked me for the documents, and I sent them to them, but they never bid. So I don't know so I need to find out the state regulations is can we, since there's no bidders, can we go to somebody local, and let's just say Jason Evans, and just say, do you want to come in and do the design and the cost, and come up with one bid to do this work?
Oh, who the heck put the drainage in there originally?
So,
I lost the
it
name.
was Derek's?
Thank you.
what color's your mailbox?
But I worked with Grover's excavating down in Brattleboro.
Right.
And there's somebody that may be willing to do something.
Right, so what I'm interested in is if the state says, you know how much you're authorized, because there's a number to spend on this, and you've got no bids, but we still, so the grant is through the Emergency Water Protection Program, so their goal is to not have stuff fall in the river. It sounds weird, they don't care about your house, they just don't want your house in the river.
Well,
Well,
we
that's
got
gonna
about
hold
10
her.
more feet.
Right. And
Well,
so,
April 1st, she stood out on a stump, and we had about 22 feet to the corner of the foundation. Today, I have 10 feet. That stump is down on a 50-foot cliff, right straight down to
With
the ground.
full-blown trees like out.
And, you know, it's like I could stand there and almost watch it go.
So I will contact the state tomorrow.
I mean, it's an emergency as far as they don't want something down in the river. They're gonna get a house.
And they don't, and they've been here and they've seen it, and so there has to be some parameters of, we went out and did the process, can we then go direct bid as long as we stay within the confines of how much they're allocated to do the work. And
Now,
find
what
somebody
about
who's-
some kind of emergency to stop it? Till
Well, that may
we
be,
get in there.
that
and
may
do
be the
something.
thing, right, is, I'll just find out from him tomorrow, I'll call him on the phone and say, what are we supposed to do now, right, we still have the same problem, but we have no bids for design.
Yeah,
So-
and it's worse.
And it's worse, and see.
And
see
we've
what
got
they
a
say.
more storms.
More
Yeah,
stuff.
like the storm that we're having today up north.
Right.
Every
If that
time
had
it's
gone
storm.
south, we'd be in a lot of trouble. You know, it's,
So I'll follow up on that. I thought we'd get a couple bids. This, in fact, may make it a little bit faster if we could do emergency stuff, because once you have the design bid, then they have to do the design, then you have to put a bid out for the work, which is
Yeah.
a longer timeline.
now, an engineer already did the design, right?
No, that's
They
what,
came in with the 250,000 bid.
well, they came in with,
Or
so
an estimate or whatever.
the estimate. So all that's been done. Yeah. So what they need is somebody to go out there, because somebody's got to look at it and go, how am I going to get there? One.
Yeah.
They're going to have to come through, I think, the other side of the.
Yeah.
Right.
On the back side, you're gonna have to
Lisa-
come around probably.
Lisa
Or
Johnson will.
Come in from like the Brook side.
Right. And so
Right now, there's a lip. I mean, because all that bank is sitting right down by the brook now. That stump and everything that we used to stand on up on top.
Right.
And, but like I say, it's like a 15-foot cliff and it's almost undermined.
Yeah.
And you can
Canyon.
just, okay, you know, when's it gonna go?
Right. Well, I'll see what they say. I mean, they have to have some. I'm sure this has happened before. I'm sure it's not the first time that they're like, "Oh, you didn't get bids. What do we do now?"
Yeah.
Because their mission is to make sure your house doesn't fall in the brook.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to go, "Well,
Yeah, whether
nobody
we
wants to
decide,
fix it. Sorry."
whether we decide to live in it or sell it is,
Right. And they might have a.
We
They may
can't
have
make that
a. They may
decision.
have a list of state-approved contractors who have licenses, and they're going, "Okay, we're going to send you 3 people."
I mean, even to come in and fill it with gravel and, you know, to a point to where it's gonna stabilize. And once it's stabilized, and okay, you know, as we don't have another hurricane, we should be okay till they can get it
All
done.
right. Well, I'll get back to you and I can't remember her name of them.
Kate.
Kate, and I'll email her. But I'll get him on the phone tomorrow, so supposed to email him so I can
Yeah,
get an
she's
answer.
still the executor, but things are
Very close.
Okay.
very close to being solved on that front.
What's the parcel number of that lot you're talking about?
That's
Do you know your parcel number? It's the only house. What's the road?
How about 52 Jim Boyd Road?
It's only
The old
house.
Perry Trailer Park.
Yeah, it's the only house on Jim Boyd Road,
Yeah,
just south of the school.
She knows where it is.
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful setup.
It's a wonderful
It
property.
really is. The house itself, the post and beam was built 1864.
Yeah.
And they built a house around it.
In the
So, I
Civil
mean,
War.
Yeah, and it's all there.
And then my parents did it in the
Yeah,
60s.
it's a wonderful property. All right, I'll contact you tomorrow and see what they say.
I'll
Thank
be
you for
floating
coming.
around the universe.
Yeah,
A lot of times I'm just over there.
playing pickleball.
No,
Well, I'll be over there actually because my daughter's coming up. I haven't seen her in
Okay.
6 years. She's coming up
Nice.
for
so we're planting them over there.
Yeah.
Good place for 2 little boys to run.
Yeah, well, they don't get you in bed.
Yeah.
All right, so signed animal control contract. I mean, I looked at the number, so it's $4,575 for the year. They're gonna bill us $381.25 per month. That's 18 hours per week for the animal control officer to work, and it's splitting hours amongst all the towns that are part of the deal. This is kind of your little thing. Anything you want to add?
No, it's pretty much cut and dry.
Okay.
If we're all set, we're gonna scoot.
All right, yeah, no.
Before I melt out of the
Thank
chair.
you for coming.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
So I move that we sign the animal control contract for $4,575 on an annual basis.
I'll second that.
Any
Took me a
discussion?
minute, I have to get my bearings.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Say hi, goodbye to Maria.
Opposed, say nay. There are none. All right,
So I'll make a motion that we recess the meeting and convene as the Liquor Control Board.
Second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we're approving a liquor catering request by Surly Hospitality LLC for a wedding at Scott Farm on August 10th. from 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and I'll be there at 9:31 and there better not be any drunks around.
I'll make a motion that we approve the liquor catering request from Surly Hospitality LLC for a wedding at Spot Farm on 8/10 from 5 to 9:30 p.m.
So, any further discussion on it? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against say nay. So that's unanimous.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the liquor control board, the reconvene meeting.
I just have to,
Yep, I'll second that. Make sure you sign the warrants before you leave in the minutes, everybody. I'm gonna take those back to the town office. I'll go back.
Yeah, could you pass those up?
So I'll make a motion we adjourn.
Oh yeah, I thought it did. Oh, I seconded it.
That was of the liquor.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a good call. Thank you. I'm like, yeah, I'll adjourn. You said adjourn. That's all I heard. All right, so we are adjourned at.
Who seconded it?
I did. At 6:34.